Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. We are back from our world travels. We hope you guys have enjoyed the videos of the ancient civilizations that have been coming out periodically. We are now we are in the tail end. We are seeing the end of the rainbows ahead of us. We have been studying the Byzantine Empire this week, which was the end of the Roman Empire that broke off in the Eastern Roman Empire, and it became the Byzantine Empire. So we spent a little bit of time this week studying that. One of the problems with the Byzantine Empire is, I'll start with our first book. We won't talk about it as a start here, but I pulled this off of Reddit. These are all the Byzantine emperors. It is very hard to cover 1,000 years of history, over 1,000 years of history in 1 week. And I think the way the curriculum wanted to focus on it, they wanted to focus on Justinian, who was probably one of the most notable of the emperors. So that's the problem.
But you might really find information about Justinian in books about medieval history.
Exactly.
So we're like right on the cusp there.
Yeah.
So, but that was the most famous of the Byzantine emperors.
And that's what the History Quest focused on and centered around, and so I would really recommend you to do that as well. Don't try to figure out all the Byzantine emperors. Just focus on that one and kind of like the apex of the Byzantine Empire, and then kind of as it kind of crumbled over the next 1,000 years.
Right. We decided to focus on that and art, right?
Yep.
Byzantines are known for their art, and so that's why we wanted to pull in some books about that and watch some videos about that and things, because that wasn't covered much in the curriculum itself, but we thought that would make a more lasting impression than a stream of different emperors and things.
So it was pretty slim on the readings. You basically get just the History Quest and a little bit of the Usborne Encyclopedia, the internet linked encyclopedia, the purple book, and that's all you got.
Right, and we're continuing in Mulan, right?
Yes, so we're continuing that, but we had to bring in some additional books because that's how we do.
That's how we roll.
So history! Exclamation point! Not
history!
Not just history. It's history. So they have a nice little spread on the Byzantine Empire, and then you can see here the beautiful artwork, the mosaic artwork that's kind of left over of the Romans, the influence there as well. It was really cool, and I think there's maybe one more page here as well. Nope, that's it. So it's basically just a nice little timeline. So it was a nice little, kind of window into that, and then going
good way to kick off about the art.
Yeah, and just kind of nibbling. If you have followed us on the Rome section that we did, we recommended this book as well. So if you picked it up, you'll be able to use a little bit more of it towards the end. On the last page, literally the last pages, they have a nice little spread on kind of the twilight years of the Roman Empire, and then kind of the emergence of the Byzantine Empire.
That's right.
So kind of a nice little couple page spread that you can add to this as well. So if you already have this book, go ahead and do it. Don't buy the book just for the Byzantines.
Right. It's only a few paragraphs.
If you're going to buy for the weeks you're going to spend in Rome.
Because it is great.
It's great for that. And then just know that, we got a couple pages in here for the Byzantine Empire.
That's right.
I think that's the proper way to use that book. I wouldn't just buy it for the one week.
Yeah.
And as Ariel said, we spent a lot of time on art, and we have this beautiful book. I think we might have showed it before.
Right, this is the art that changed the world, and while it's very slim on Asian art, it's really great when it comes to things that are Europe or Europe adjacent, of which this counts.
Yep.
So they had
really
some
nice spread
really great stuff on the business. I think this might be
where
there's 2 pages.
3 or 4 pages on this. I spent a good time reading this to my daughter at dance class. When my youngest was in dance class, so we were spending some time looking at this, pulling down some additional art, really talking about the themes. They're obviously very heavily Christian themed in their artwork, predominantly in this time period in this region. So very unique, especially with the halos, the pictures of the halos around. I thought were really pretty. My daughter really liked that, and we saw that art kind of like spread throughout all of our research. Anytime we saw some of the old buildings and some like the old motifs and maybe the frescoes and things of that nature, we saw that artwork in there. So it's really nice to kind of bring it back home with this book.
Yeah, this is a good time to lean into art. And if you
I have a feeling we're going to be bringing this book back as we go through the Middle Ages and all that type of stuff.
We're going to be bringing this book back a lot. Again, it's just really slim on like African and Asian art. There's really hardly anything there. So you're going to have to supplement when you study those areas of history. But for European, more Western art, there's lots of great stuff in here. So this could be a great week if you wanted to do an art project, to do something like with mosaic tiles. You could even do like a like a decoupage with tissue paper in different colors. That could kind of, something like that could work out. Or you could cut little slips of construction paper and then glue those and make a mosaic. Yeah. We were just getting back from vacation, so we didn't have the bandwidth to make up an art activity, but I think something that leaned into, trying to do a mosaic of some sort would be really well placed this week.
Exactly. Next one's a big, heavy one. It's our National Geographic Visual History of the World. There's a nice jacket cover, but I think it's...
that was destroyed long ago. Those jacket covers, right?
In the wind.
Actually, this is funny because we have not shown this book before. This is my book, and this is actually a little older because we bought this, not quite 10 years ago, I think.
Don't tell them how old.
I don't know. This was a gift. You gave this to me because I love all things visual.
This is more, so if you have a little bit of an older learner, this is a really nice, it has a couple page spread here. On the Byzantines, a little bit more of an elevated dialogue. It's a little bit maybe like a eyewitness level, but a little bit more, as you can kind of see here. I liked it. I read through it a little bit and pulled in some additional pictures. You can see here, obviously, the artwork that we saw, and then obviously the Christian motifs were, I think, really prominent because of the Byzantines, and so you get a lot of that too. So you're talking a little bit about the Christian artwork that kind of came from that region of the world was really dominated the art of that area. So
and a book like this, one of these, what is this, National Geographic? National Geographic or Smithsonian. The books for adults, something like this, would be a really great primer as a parent educator to review this before you're ready to talk about the week, and you can kind of get the standout things, because otherwise you only really get what History Quest decides to cover. So whatever it is that they decided to do about that time in ancient civilization is kind of all you get.
And they tried really hard. I mean, they did a nice summary.
Right. I'm not saying they do a bad job. I'm just saying that it's very narrow in scope because of the age of our kids. But there may be something that is relevant to that civilization or that time period that your child might be super into that you would not otherwise be exposed to. So it might be worth having some sort of an adult reference book around to, just give yourself a quick primer and then be like, oh, hey, there was a couple of things in here I know my kiddo would be interested in. Maybe I'll go find some things out about that, because otherwise everything is, it's narrow in scope.
It is. So then because as we came back from our trip, if you follow us on our podcast, we went ahead and leaned heavily into the media this week. There was a couple really good TED Ed videos on the Byzantine. There's a couple really nice videos, and we'll put them in the show notes on Justinian, and then a little bit on Justinian's plague, which I think kind of goes unnoticed in that time frame. There was a really nasty plague that came through.
But wasn't the plague. It was a plague.
It may have been that plague in a different form. It's kind of up in the air, but really wiped out a lot of people, and it was almost as destabilizing as the later years of the plague as well. So it's kind of interesting. They talked about the Nika riots, which was a big challenge that Justinian had early in his reign, that his wife helped him get through. Theodora, I believe was her name. And they had a nice write-up on her in the History Quest. So it's another chance to get into, a strong female character within the history, which has been kind of lacking, but that's just to be well understood. I think History Quest has done a good job at kind of bringing female characters in. And I think they did another good job this week, but you can dive into her relationship with him, which was kind of this relationship of love. What I really love about Justinian is the story, the origin story. He was not royalty. He was just a goat farmer, and his father, his uncle was like a sheep herder as well, and they kind of rose to power. His uncle became the emperor of the Byzantine emperor from just like humble beginnings. So it was a really interesting kind of like arc of a story. It would be really well done as like a movie or something like that. So
that's really interesting.
It was actually very interesting to read about that. So I think that's why they kind of focused on it, because it's really this like really kind of odd rags to riches story. It was very strange. So I didn't expect that. So that was the Byzantine week. It was kind of slim. But we really leveraged a lot of media at the end and some of the additional books that we have on our shelf. And it was a fun week. It was good. I think we're kind of getting to the end, and these are kind of more slim weeks.
These are kind of our transitional weeks, right? Because
into the end.
You're transitioning
to the end.
Right. You're meant to take these last couple of weeks to tail down as you would kind of go into what would be a summer or a break, and then pick back up with medieval is what this is meant to do. So I can see it's kind of like you went through all of Rome and you went through China, you've done these big kind of heavy things, and now it's just like we're going to sprinkle in some transitory type weeks, and then as if 1,000-year civilization is transitory.
Also included with Justinian is a good opportunity to study the Hagia Sophia, which is kind of it was one of the grand churches of the Byzantine. It was one of the grandest churches in the world for a long time. Once the Ottomans took over, it became a mosque, and then it became a museum, and now it's maybe back to a mosque. So we spent a lot of time studying that as well. It's just kind of like the 3D rendering of how big it is and getting inside of it. There's some really nice videos, and we'll go ahead and include those in there as well. Once we learned a little bit about that position, we learned a little bit more about Constantinople, modern day Istanbul, and really understanding how like amazing the fortifications were of the city and how like difficult it was to invade the city. So it was really kind of cool. We spent a little bit of time on the city of Constantinople, Istanbul, and really understanding the history behind it. So it was kind of a nice media time because it really leveraging that visual aspect was nice. So anyway, that was the end of the week. Next week we're going southeast into the desert, and we're going to find out what happened in about 570 AD and see what happened in Arabia as they began their expansion into Greater Africa. So we'll finish up our ancient civilizations in Arabia. So we'll see you in the desert next week.